Hey guys, we are live. I want to give you a video today on how to remember more of what you learn. And this is something that I was coaching somebody on just this week, and it's a really simple technique, and it really works. And I'm going to start off with a question. When do you know something? I mean, like you really know it. Who knows something the best? You learn the most when you're teaching. And we all know this. You know, I do jujitsu, and sometimes I am jealous of my jujitsu coaches because I know that they're going to learn the material better because they're teaching it. You learn, hey, Apex, how you doing? You learn something the most when you're teaching it. So here's a study hack that I want you to start doing. Whenever you're studying, hello, pretty little thing. That's the username, by the way. Whenever you're studying, whether you're studying for history or science or math or physics or whatever, I want you, hey JB, how you doing? Whenever you're studying for something, I want you to teach it after you get done learning it. So here's the thing. Study for your test, study your notes, study whatever you're learning, and then after you have studied it, I want you to teach it to somebody. Now, you might not have, you could teach it to your brother or your sister or your friend. Hey, hello from Iraq. That's great. Hugs from Brazil. Hey, how you doing? After you learn something, teach it to somebody. So let's say you just studied and you just learned something about American history or European history. Get your brother or your sister and teach it to them, or your husband or your wife or a friend. Now, if you don't have a friend to teach it to, hey, Bob, I've been to Lebanon. I've been to Beirut. If you don't have a friend to teach it to, then teach it to the wall, teach it to a plant, teach it to a vacuum cleaner. Maybe do a YouTube video. Do a YouTube video and teach what you just learned. Don't worry about subscribers or don't worry about anything like that. Tunisia, I'd love to go to Tunisia. So if you want to remember something better, you need to teach it. Now, there are some things that you need to do to make this more effective. If you want to really make sure that you know it. In other words, don't just read something and then go teach it. I want you to break it down into simple terms. Teach it to your pet. There you go. I want you to break it down in the simplest terms that you can. Learn something and then teach it to your pet or your dog. Because by you repeating it, it's going to make sure that you really know it. There was a guy named Richard Fineman. And Richard Fineman, hey, yeah, how about some more thumbs up? I appreciate that. Thank you, MJ. Richard Fineman was a scientist, and he was once asked to explain a scientific theory. And he said, you know what? I'm going to see if I can explain that a way college freshmen would understand it. And then he came back a few days later and he said, I can't think of a way to explain it so simple that a college freshman would understand it. And because of that, he said that he didn't understand it well enough himself. When you explain something or when you teach something to other people, I want you to explain it in the simplest terms possible, like you're talking to your grandmother or you're talking to a 6-year-old. Because if you can break something down and then explain it in really super simple terms, then that means that you really understand it. The more simply you can understand it, the better that you can understand it. Hey, Krista from the Philippines. Do you know what also it does? When you teach something to other people, you are working on your communication skills. I'm getting better at my communication skills by teaching you. Do you know what? I learned memory training more because I've taught it to others. I've been teaching memory training for 29 years. I promise you, I would not have learned it. Hey, bye, so how are you? I promise you, I would not have learned memory training as well as I do if I had not started teaching it to other people. So whatever subject you're studying for in school, history, science, math, whatever, start teaching this to others. How to apply this to college exams? Well, this is kind of what I'm talking about, Big Smoke. This is college exams. You study a subject in college, and after you have studied that chapter, close the book and then teach it to somebody or teach it to a friend. this does a couple things. It makes sure you really know it. If you can't explain it to somebody, you don't really know it. Number two, I don't want you to use a bunch of words that are big words unless you really understand them. Use simple words. And here's the last thing I'm going to tell you on this, and then I'll answer some of your questions. How to learn things like pages of a book. I'll answer these questions here in 1 second. But the last point I want to tell you on this is when you are explaining this or teaching this to other people, don't use notes. Don't use notes when you're teaching it to somebody. Because if you're using notes, that's not reinforcing it in your brain. You're just reading it again. Close your notebook and force yourself to teach without notes. They actually did a study on this, a study in a college where they had one group of people teach it to others, but they used notes. And then they had one group of people who they weren't able to use notes. So that forced them to really learn it well. Of course, this group knew the material better than this group. So when you teach it, don't use notes. I remember, here's a question. I remember only for one day for the exam and will not remember it later. Here's the reason why you don't remember it later. It's because you didn't review. When we study for an exam, we put it in our memory. But what puts something in our long-term memory, like where we can recall it in a year, is a couple things. Number one is review. So after you study for a test, if this information is something that you really want to know and it's really valuable to you, I encourage you to review it that day, review it that night, review it the next day. Continue to review to put it in your long-term memory. Another reason you don't remember information you studied for a test is the information wasn't strong enough in your brain. It wasn't vivid enough. If you've ever been in a car accident or if you have had something emotional happen in your life, you could probably remember a car accident from 10 years ago. But you can't remember everywhere you drove last week. Why? Action and emotion. So if you want to remember something long-term, you got to review it. Review it every couple days or weeks. But also, by the way, if you're enjoying this video, please give me a thumbs up. Give me a like. I'm going to go about 3 or 4 more minutes here. I'm going to go and make it action and emotion. Some people, once they read, they remember forever. Why is that? They are born like that. Some people are born with a naturally good memory. That's true. I'm not. I have to practice it. How do you remember pages of a book? Okay, so you need to use something known as the mind palace or the memory palace technique. Let me answer this, and I'll come back to how long does it take to make memory a habit. You need to use the mind palace. Here, and let me show you. Let me give you an example of the mind palace or the memory palace technique. Go for a walk at your park and number locations. Number locations. Make that building number 1. Make the trail number 2. Make that tree number 3. And let's say you're studying for a test in your school. Well, you want to remember history facts that you just read in a college textbook. Take the first history fact and imagine it as a picture on that building. Take the next history fact, imagine it as a picture on this road. Take the next fact and imagine it as a picture on that tree over there. Then, after you have read the book, you go for a walk on this trail, you imagine the spots there, and then just keep walking that trail. Just keep walking that path until the knowledge is cemented in your brain. And then, to make sure that you really know it, I mean really, really know it, teach it to others. The more action, the more emotion, the more vivid you can make these things work. Let's see if I have any questions here. Well, guys, I'm not sure how to find your questions, but I enjoy. Here, one last question. After taking the black belt course, I memorized 1,400 questions in order to pass the FAA. Wow! Last question. How do you read a book in a day? Somebody just posted that. I just saw it. My tip on reading a book in a day is to read the back cover, read the table of contents, and read the chapter summaries first. This will tell you the main points. This will tell you what the author wants you to learn from that book. And after you have the main points and you know what the main ideas of the book is, read with your finger or read with a pen and just move it across the page. By reading with your finger or reading with a pen, you're not allowing your eye to jump around the page, and it'll help you read faster. When you get to something that's important, underline it or highlight it or make a note of it in a notebook, but keep going. Don't try to memorize the book as you read. Just try to get the main points, the main ideas. And you probably could read small books in a day that way. I think the idea of reading a book in a day is ambitious. I did it in December, about a year ago December. It was a book a day. It was a fun experiment, but sometimes I enjoyed taking my time and just really learning the material. Guys, I just wanted to do a short video right here, but I see all your questions coming up. So keep the questions coming. Keep posting the questions. I will come back to this video and look at the questions and make another video and answer your questions. But if you enjoyed me taking a little bit of time today to answer these questions, I do appreciate all the thumbs up. If you're not a subscriber to my channel, I'd love you to subscribe. But type all your questions below. I have to go now. I have to leave and go memorize something, actually. I'm memorizing the United States Constitution. I'll put a link to my memory course I'll pin a comment with my link to my memory course so you can check it out, Black Belt Memory, if you want. Hey, love you too, Daniel. Hey, sleep well, Daniel. Basil, see you later. Hey, is it Kodrick style? Nick, email, how to memorize a book. We'll talk about that next time. Gazelle, bye. Prajwa Sharma, bye. Queen, Pranu, Nathan Bailey. Oh yeah, meditation. We got a video we're going to do on meditation. Love you guys too. Talk to you later.